10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
Liftoff, and the clock is started.
Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And using our hoverboard technology, we zoom right into Kerbalcast, episode 23. The future is closer than you think.
Now, why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
I am your... No, you know what? I have changed my mind. It's time for Nos to go first. Our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
and I am your LMP, Lunar Module Pilot, Biff Aldrin. See, you got got first billing. You should be happy.
I should have called Shotgun in the command pod.
Shotgun. Coming up in today's program, we'll update you on our progress within the game.
Dark Mushroom brings us another installment of Dark Matters.
And he's talking about rendezvous, docking, and ascent profiles. Also, we'll have your letters and some Kerbal news in this week's mission briefing.
And DK gives us another Modders Minute.
Talking about NavHUD and another Shea challenge for you. Well, how was your week?
Hectic.
Hectic?
Yeah, I thought the work thing was going to let up, but it looks like it's going on strong.
Yeah,
so.
You're doing 7 days a week now.
Yeah, I am.
Yikes.
So my progress report's short,
yeah.
But it did happen.
Uh-huh.
It was funny because I normally, like, the day of the day we record is whenever I go and play.
Right.
And I almost got told, like, the night before, hey, we need you to come in at 4 a.m.
Ouch.
And I would be like, well, that's going to be an interesting podcast. I walk in, so how's your progress? None.
Well,
but I managed to get a little bit of time in.
You know what, though? It's better than the alternative, which would have been, hey, how was your playtime?
Yeah. Just sleeping through the whole thing.
You just fall asleep in the podcast. Well, it's been I hate to say this because, you just said, I've had a horrible week, and then I'm about to turn around and go, I've had a great week.
Oh, yeah. Hey, no, I got no problem with people having a good week.
The something that I have been waiting for quite some time finally came out this past week. Minecraft for the PS Vita.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me about that.
Finally came out. Finally.
Are you sure that, do you have it in your hands?
I have it in my hands.
Okay, I was about to say.
I had it in my hands the instant they released it.
Okay, because I was about to say they kept pulling it out of your hands when you thought you had it for a while.
Well, the story of this, about a year ago, I was in Best Buy, and they had Vitas on sale. And I have always wanted a Vita. I wanted a Vita back when they came out with PSP, which I was sorely disappointed with. That was a system that was hobbled from day one by lack of a second analog stick. I have always wanted a Vita.
Okay, because I haven't really seen the Vita, so it has a second analog stick?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
it's basically it's a PlayStation in your hands.
Yeah, I remember the PSPs.
Yeah.
So.
But the nice thing is that, I can't take Kerbal with me wherever I go.
But you can take that.
But now I have that.
That'd be hard to take Kerbal.
Yeah. Well, I have my laptop. But my laptop is not exactly the epitome of portable.
Yeah, pocket-sized.
But it's really nice because, now I can game on the go. Mm-hmm. And this is really, truly, this is the first portable game that I've ever had that felt like a console. Because this is identically the console version.
Yeah.
But it's nice because now when I'm out and about, I can play Minecraft, which I enjoy. Mm-hmm. But I have not played in quite some time because when I'm at home, I'm playing Kerbal.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to play. I don't care what incentive there is to play Minecraft. When I'm home, I'm playing Kerbal. But when I'm out and I can't play Kerbal, then I play Minecraft.
So it's kept a lot of its fidelity to the original version?
Oh, yeah. It is identical. It is exactly like playing the console
awesome.
version. Yeah. But anyway, so it's really nice because now, I can game Minecraft and then come home and game Kerbal. And, Kerbal is very fresh every time I come home now.
Yeah.
Also, and I guess this gets us into our progress, I finally accomplished something this week playing Kerbal that I have not done ever. I finally went to my first asteroid.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought you went to that Well, it's kind of like a moon, though, isn't it?
Yeah. You're talking about around Jewel when I went to BOP. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about they added with the grabber. They added the unknown objects that you could go.
Oh, so you found one of those?
Yeah, I went to one of those, and you had asked me last time because I mentioned in the last podcast that I was planning on going to an asteroid, and you asked me a question. I now have an answer for it.
Uh-huh.
The question you asked was, do asteroids have a sphere of influence? In real life, yes. But in the game, no. The whole time, this literally took me hours to accomplish. I mean, that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
I set up a transfer burn, much like I would do going from one planet to the next. And I did all kinds of tweaking and whatever to get my trajectory to line up with that of the asteroid.
Mm-hmm.
But I could never get closer, at a distance, I could never get closer than kind of in the neighborhood, I guess is a good way to put it. And so as I approached it, I would create a maneuver node, and it would be like, a 1 meter adjustment here, and then I would, make another maneuver node, and it'd be, okay, a 3 meter adjustment there, and I made multiple corrections, and some of it would be, speed up, and then it would be, raise your elevation, then it would be slow down, and then it would be lower your elevation, and it was just, tweaking and fine tuning, and I finally got close enough to the thing that I could see it, and that's when I made my final adjustment that lined me up with it and synced me up with it to where my velocity was going I was going the same speed and trajectory as it was. The thing that surprises me, and I would love to hear from somebody because I'm not 100% positive that this is true. I did not have the grabber when I did my first encounter. Okay, my first asteroid encounter.
Oh. Wait, were you intending on meeting up with one of those asteroids?
Yes, I was,
so
but I had not. I had not unlocked that yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and see what I thought doing this. I thought my first asteroid encounter was going to be science crazy. I thought that I was going to make this science encounter, or I was going to make this first encounter with the asteroid, and my science reward was going to be just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. So I get synced up with this thing. I detach my RCS only lander, which, by the way, I tweeted a picture of.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, remember we said we were going to tweet out pictures of our ships. I actually did that. I actually tweeted out some pictures. But anyway, so I detached. I maneuvered over and I landed on the asteroid. Okay,
mm-hmm.
And immediately floated back off of it. So I landed on the asteroid and immediately floated back off. No matter what I did, I couldn't make the lander stay on the asteroid.
Because it didn't have a sphere of influence.
Yeah, it just would not. It just kept.
Yeah, there's nothing pulling you into it.
Right, and that's where obviously I need the grabber. Well, I was holding the RCS key down, and I was basically forcing the lander to stay attached to the asteroid long enough to run my science experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And when I ran them, every single one of them came back with the same result, high above the sun. It didn't say anything about asteroid.
Okay. So asteroids don't provide any science.
I'm wondering if you have to be attached to it with a grabber. And that's the question I'm tossing out. Somebody else who has done an asteroid encounter, if you are attached to the asteroid with a grabber, does it give you asteroid-specific science? Because my experience has been it acts like you're just, like the asteroid isn't even there.
Yeah.
You're high above the sun, regardless of the fact that you're standing on an asteroid. And I even, I took Jeb on an EVA and actually took a sample from the asteroid, and it didn't treat it any differently than it would anything else. From what I could tell, the science didn't treat the asteroid like an asteroid. I mean,
it
was just
basically like a biome.
It was like, okay, it was a soil sample, but it was like, but it's a soil sample from an asteroid. No, it's a soil sample,
Yeah, I guess it would have to be the grabber because maybe the game is translating it like whenever you're doing that thrust to keep on the surface of it.
Right.
For all it knew, you were trying to do the thrust to keep on the surface of like a bunch of space debris.
Right. Well,
So,
but
maybe the grabber identifies it whenever it's holding it.
But the game has been it has identified, like for example, you can get science when you're close to Kerbin, and it'll say, science acquired, in near Kerbin orbit, and then when you go way out, it says, high above Kerbin.
Yeah.
Kerbin, and so it can identify proximity. And I'm surprised. I would think that even without the grabber, the game would identify that you are next to this asteroid. But that's my question. Does the grabber make a difference?
Yeah.
Because given how many hours it took me just to get there, and the first thing I did when I got back, by the way, was unlock the grabber.
I was about to ask if
Yeah.
you did. Yeah.
It was like, when I got back, that was the first item on my list was, it's like I had all these other things that I could have unlocked.
Uh-huh.
And, the grabber is all by itself. You have to, when you unlock it, you don't get anything but it. And so, I was looking at it and I was going, I have just enough science to buy it or buy something else that has like a lot in it. And I was like, no, I want that grabber. So I went ahead and got the grabber. But the question is, before I try and do this again,
Is it all for nothing?
well, I mean, before I spend another 5 hours tweaking and intercepting another one, does it, will it make a difference in terms of science? So, but it was, honestly, it was really cool to, to finally get up on one of those things and to actually see it. And unlike planets and moons, you can actually influence these things. You can bump into them and make them, and this is, more for the smaller ones, but you can actually nudge them. One of the challenges that's been tossed out is, connect with the grabber and bring it back to Kerbin orbit. You can actually move these things.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I had fun with that.
Yeah, a lot of people, like, you can will either just throw them down to the surface or they'll, redirect them into other spheres of influence and stuff.
Right. That would, that would be a lot of fun, I think, is to bring like a small one back and deorbit it and see what happens, when it enters Kerbin. It would be like,
to see if it would like establish an orbit around Kerbin or the Mun or something.
Well, what I'm saying is bring it back, put it in orbit around Kerbin, and then deorbit it and let it enter the atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
It's like is there like a nuclear winter mod for the game where it impacts and then there's this dust shroud that
I've kind of
kills
wondered what it does for that. I've also kind of wondered what happens if you run two of them into each other.
Yeah.
Like you throw an asteroid into another asteroid.
Right. Well, maybe it's like those those things that you can put on your desk where the kinetic motion where you can knock the steel balls.
Yeah, maybe it just does that. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe they'll just knock each other back and
satisfying
forth.
clack.
But I'm back to science mode this week. I did contract to kind of adjust, to do a review of 0.25. But I'm back in science mode. I have a ship right now that has just left Kerbin orbit, and I have established a planetary transfer to Duna, and I am in the process. I'm looking right at the screen right now.
Me too.
Yeah. And it is on its way to Duna. And sometime after we finish this podcast, for this latest round of science, I will land on Duna. One last thing I will say. I finally, as anxious as I was for 64-bit, I have been just having too much trouble with it, so I went back to 32-bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What would happen?
Well, I remember a letter we got from somebody saying that 64 was giving them a lot of problems, too.
Yeah. Well, and they said that with 0.25, 64 had become even more unstable. I was having about the same frequency of crashes. What would happen, especially when I was, like, for example, in the VAB, I would be doing something and all of a sudden, you know how in Windows you get the hourglass that starts spinning?
Yeah.
what I would get here is like a light blue circle that would start spinning. And sometimes it would come out of it and the game would continue. And then sometimes it would just spin and then the thing would crash to desktop. So I finally just went, I'm just getting tired of this.
Yeah, I experienced that a few times today, and I didn't know if it was the amount of RAM I have and stuff. Sometimes like it just works just fine if I just restart my computer and then play.
Right.
So I did that, but I did have the occasional desktop, go back to desktop crash.
Are you running 64-bit?
I believe so.
Okay. When you do your load screen at the very bottom right hand, it'll say in parentheses 64.
Yeah.
If it doesn't say that, you're running 32. And if you are running 64, then you have to go in and change the shortcut under Steam. So
whatever it went to naturally when I updated, that's what I'm doing. So.
Okay. I wondered if it defaulted to 64-bit now.
I think it does.
Because when it first came out, you actually had to go in and manually change the shortcut.
Yeah.
And so obviously I had to go back and manually change it to 32-bit, but I didn't know if it just defaulted to that or not. Mm-hmm. I would love to say that I can compare performance between the 32 and the 64, but I really can't, given that the 64 was giving me some problems.
Yeah, so it's like either,
I can't really say that there's much of a difference between 32, other than 32 doesn't seem to crash to desktop.
Yeah, like 32 that works or 64 that's nice but doesn't always work. So.
Yeah. Okay, so I've just kind of all in one long breath. I've just done my entire progress report. So go ahead. What's your progress?
Mine was I did a couple more contracts. The notable ones were just a lot of parts testing, and then I did the established orbit. I'm working on the Mun contract right now.
Okay. What is that contract?
It's 4 parts, and they don't have to be completed together. They can be completed independently, and you get rewards for them independently. One is orbit around the Mun. Another one is landing and transmitting science from above the Mun, in orbit around the Mun, land on the Mun, and from the Mun. Yeah.
And you've landed on the Mun before. That's
yeah.
Okay.
It's just I'm doing it now in 0.25,
right?
And with all the stuff that we've gotten from our listeners about like ISP and stuff like that. I didn't know all that before.
Did you do that this past week? I mean, I was right clicking every engine.
Oh yeah, I was looking at all of them. I was like, oh okay. I was like, oh okay, that one. I said, oh, that one has an awesome ISP. Oh wait, that'd be awful for a lander.
Yeah.
You'd seem like that's an amazing ISP, and then you're like, oh wait, no, that's way too massive to put on a lander.
It changes. It really changes how you. Because there were a couple of engines that were just kind of my go-to engines. And now when you sit there and you look at the ISP on them. They're still go-to engines for certain uses.
Yeah.
But when I was designing my latest rocket, I was going, this doesn't belong here. This is like a lower stage engine. This other engine over here is much better for an upper stage engine. And it was before it was just kind of by feel, but now I was actually comparing numbers. So
yeah, so it's like
congratulations, listeners! You got me right-clicking everything now.
So I was the one thing I don't have is I don't have all of the ships that I saved in my previous campaign.
Did they disappear when it updated to?
I don't know.
0.25?
I started the 0.25 campaign,
and
I can't access the stuff from my different save.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you know that you can go in. Into
the files.
You can go in and copy them in.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I'm just kind of taking what I know and just kind of rebuilding it.
Yeah.
Because the ones that I had were okay, but I don't know. I'm just looking to make something a little bit better.
Yeah.
So
well, what's nice about rebuilding every time is that it enhances your learning curve, because rather than building a ship once and then just reusing it over and over, even if you rebuild the exact same ship, chances are you've made some improvements just based on experience.
So instead of like, okay, well, I'll just click and drag this over, boom, it's done, I have my ship. Each time you make it, you realize, hey, I don't really need this thing anymore, and that's going to drop some weight, or just play around with it and just change things. So I made it orbit around the Mun. It's funny because now half the launches I've done, I launch, tilt, make an orbit around Kerbin, expand.
Right.
Almost every time whenever I get caught by the Mun, it's directly into it. Like Like my path of intersection is boom, straight into like smack dab into it.
Right.
So it's like I haven't had one where it's like, okay, you're gonna do like you're gonna clip it, and so just close that and you'll have an orbit. It's like, no, you're going straight to the surface of it.
Are you how are you doing your Mun transfers? Are you waiting? Are you just basically waiting when you're in orbit? And are you waiting for Mun rise over Kerbin and then? No,
I stopped doing that because I realized that's not going to build me any good habits for doing other spheres of influence. Mm-hmm. So I'm launching and keeping it at 200 meters a second until I'm at 10,000 meters.
Okay.
Then I'm tilting to 45. From the view that you start at, I'm tilting right 45, which is east 45.
Right.
Doing that 45 degrees and holding that till I'm at around 80,000 above the surface.
Okay.
And then, I'll go straight 90 and establish an orbit.
Okay.
And when that orbit's like stable and good, I'll...
And you coast until you hit 80, and then, is that right? Once you establish 80 as your apoapsis, you kill your engines and just coast to it and then go when you get there? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And then I'll do a maneuver node at the bottom of the like apoapsis to periapsis.
Gotcha.
And I'll use that to build like this oblong orbit to where it's still safe above Kerbin without air braking, and then it intersects with the Mun's orbit, and then I pretty much just time warp until they run into each other.
One thing that I learned from when I messed with the career mode when I was doing my review of 0.25, one thing I learned from career mode, the game apparently considers space 70,000 because they did a one of the contracts was,
I think geosynchronous is 74, isn't it?
Is it? Okay.
I think it was something
I don't know.
I do 80 because I tried doing 72 or 73 or something, and I ended up like I built that oblong orbit.
Right.
And then it retracted.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I'm too close.
Yeah.
So I do 80 just to be on the safe side. And then, so I make that irregular orbit and I just keep cycling it. And then eventually they sync up and it'll freeze me because I had a Mun encounter. And then I just adjust whatever I need to there to get that.
A lot of times what I'll do, because, once you go up and over your apoapsis, if you have not circularized your orbit by that point, you are in danger, depending on your ship and how you're flying.
Yeah.
You are in danger of coming back down. And if you get too close to the atmosphere, it's going to pull you back in. So I've actually I've gotten to where I'll set my apoapsis about 75, but I'll actually start my burn around 70, and I won't do like a full power burn until I get up and over.
Power burn.
But, to give myself kind of that safety cushion, I set my apoapsis a little bit higher than I actually intend it to be.
Yeah, I don't know, it feels safer that way because the last thing you want is to have everything set and then you just see your orbit just drop. Like that circle start closing. You're like, ugh.
And that can, and that can happen in the if you're not really paying attention. When I was setting up a maneuver node to transfer to Duna earlier, I wasn't paying attention to the departure. I was so busy looking at at the intersection, my Duna encounter, that I didn't notice that when I set up the maneuver node, it actually took me within what was it? It was like 400 meters or something of the surface, or no, I'm sorry, it was like 4 meters of the surface, and I had not noticed that. And so, I started my burn, and I was in map view, watching as the circle was expanding, and I was watching, my encounter and everything, and I was like, okay, good, I got my encounter, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and I was like, wait a minute, what happened to my encounter? So I'd burn some more, and what happened to my encounter? And it kept going away. And so I dumped out a map view, and there's my ship burning through the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't realize that the way I had set it was, it literally just was skimming the surface. So anyway, always pay attention to the departure angle of your maneuver node.
It's kind of like when I was going to Minmus, and I was like, okay, they synced up. And then I looked and I forgot about that whole Z-axis thing. Yeah. It's like, whenever you go into the other view, whatever side of the M key that you're on, just look around a bit first, and then go to the next one. It's like, I need to look around on my map to make sure my orbit's matching up with something. So, yeah, I left off with that, and I'm kind of doing my entry thing, which is I have my lander, and what I do is I do a couple, there's a lot of F5ing and F9ing in my process right now. But as I start to...
I do that a lot.
As I start to approach it, I find out, like, how many meters above the surface to be at before I will run out of fuel and not be able to do it. So it's like currently I'm at, okay, I think I need to be somewhere around, 50,000 meters above the surface before I start doing any burning,
This is a good place to do a shameless plug. Later in the program, DK is going to join us, and he's going to have Modder's Minute.
Yeah.
Well, you know that he has been working on a series of tutorial videos and putting them on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. He has posted a brand new one.
Yeah.
And guess what it's about?
I know. I'm actually kind of pumped to watch it, because one of his videos are like, they're very easy to follow and very instructional.
Yeah. And it's 4 minutes long. The amount of content that he packs in there is amazing, and it's entertaining.
Yeah, and
there's there's at least 2 laugh out loud moments in the latest video.
Yeah. See, I haven't watched it yet, but we actually haven't said what it's about yet. It's about going to the Mun.
Yeah, Mun Transfer.
So I'm going to I'm looking forward to watching that one.
I've said it before. I say it again. I wish these had been around when I started playing the game.
Yeah.
These are, seriously, these are some of the best tutorial videos on YouTube.
And it's not just because he's on here. Like,
yeah, no, I'm serious. Seriously, folks, take a look at it. Tell me you don't agree, because it is. In 4 minutes, you get this very quick, very informative tutorial, and then you can immediately go right from that fresh and do it in the game.
Yeah, this is the nice thing about it too, since it's so short. You can also find the piece of information you need a lot faster. It's kind of like when you're looking for one part of information from this podcast. Even you're looking through an hour and a half, 2 hours of content trying to find one thing. And
that was the problem I had when I started. Was I would have a question and I would go online and I'd find a tutorial on YouTube. And, it'd be an hour and a half long, and I'd be, skip, and I'd be like, I'd never, half the time I never found it.
There was a board game that I was, the instructions weren't great on it, so I was learning how to play it. And I found a guy who it was 9 videos, and they were 10 minutes apiece to teach you how to play this board game, because basically he played the entire thing.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, so I watched each video one at a time. And so I was able to remember like certain parts that were in the certain videos. If he would have done a 90-minute video, if I would have gotten lost, I would have been like, well, too bad. I'm just going to have to like look it up somewhere else. Right. But since it's in the small chunks, it's a lot easier to like, okay, I'm pretty sure it was one of these 2 videos. And
I don't know if it's just my attention span is getting bad or something, but there's a certain with especially with YouTube videos, there's a certain point at which I stop retaining information. It's like, I get a couple of key pieces of information, and then anything after that is just noise.
Well, it's because you haven't applied any of it yet.
Yeah,
it's like they're giving you a whole bunch of information and you haven't used it. So if like you're watching a tutorial, it's like I did that for Fable. Like I wanted to do this one achievement in Fable or Overlord or one of those 2 games.
Overlord's hilarious.
Yeah, I was trying to do it, and so I would watch part of the video and then I would move, and then I'd watch part of the video and I'd move.
Yeah.
And if I would have watched the video all the way through, I would have been like, okay, I remember certain parts of it. But if I would have like watched it at work and then went and gone home and tried to play that part, I wouldn't have remembered half the things from it.
I wondered if I was the only one who does that, because with tutorials on anything, I learn just enough to get started. Because to me, a lot of times if you go through the entire tutorial, especially if you're reading it, a lot of times you get the very basics, but then everything after that doesn't make any sense until you've actually played the game.
That's why, like in college and stuff, I annotated. Like I would annotate each paragraph, so I had some sort of action that I would do that would punctuate that I actually read something. Because otherwise, if you ever been like reading a book and after a couple pages you're like, I don't really know what happened. Like I was just going through words, so I just try to find things to latch onto and do. Most of the board games that I have, I've learned by watching a video that somebody made on how to play, and reading the rule book myself, and then reading the rule book while like having the game out and setting up the components and stuff. Because you retain information if you were given a hunk of information, like 10 to 15% of that is, if it was presented to you visually, you would retain.
Right.
And then there's so much you would do auditory, and then there's tactile of actually like touching and doing it. So if you can incorporate all of them, you retain a whole lot more of it.
Right.
It's like hands-on teaching, like retains a lot, and they're like, oh, it's because they're doing. No, it's because they're doing, they're hearing, they're seeing.
Yeah, the more senses you can engage.
Yeah,
the more ways you can remember.
Yeah, because the other ones won't distract you.
Right.
So, and that's why the entire time, I play any of DK's videos, I put on a whole bunch of scented candles, and I dim the lights.
I don't want to know.
And,
because I'm getting a really bad mental image.
Because you don't want too much vision stuff, so you dim the lights, and then you want to make sure your scent smells and distracted, so you turn on some scented candles.
Is it time for Kerbal After Dark already? DK just got totally creeped out.
One more thing about DK, there's apparently he put out a hype video. There's like a teaser or something coming up on the 1st. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to what that's going to be.
Okay, so, I have not seen it. So what is it?
It's like 15 seconds, and it's basically just like there's a little bit of music, and the date for November 1st just kind of pops up.
Really?
Yeah. And so he's like, get hype. Like it's a teaser for I don't know what.
Is it on YouTube?
Yeah.
I'll have to look for that.
No, he tweeted it a little while back.
Oh, okay. Huh, interesting.
But yeah, the summary of my progress is that I'm currently back where I've been like the past 3 times under different circumstances each time. Each time,
well, that's because you keep restarting.
Yeah, each time I've been right above the Mun about the land, and it's funny because it's like right when I left, like that's the last thing I did. But each time it's either been under a different mode of the game or it's been for a different reason. So now I'm just doing it under contract mode. So.
Okay, cool.
And it's been really nice. I've unlocked things so much faster because of
I bet.
The administration building.
Yeah.
And being able to take those strategies. It's like, hey, oh man, I'm like 40 off, and the biggest contract I have does like 30, but it provides a lot of funds, so it'll be more like 45 or something.
You can get in there and adjust that strategy.
Yeah, so it's been really cool.
I should mention we talked about DK's new YouTube video just a few minutes ago. When we post this podcast, we will also provide a link to that.
Yeah.
So definitely check it out. Well, that's our progress report for this week. Did you have anything else before we move on?
I think that's the most of it. I mean,
Okay.
I'm still enjoying 0.25, and I think there's a letter that actually asks us more about 0.25, so we'll get to that then.
Okay, very good. Well, let's move on now. It's time now for another edition of Dark Matters. Joining us now, Dark Mushroom.
Teaching you to fly surer than Shara and making you more grizzled than Grissom. My name is Dark Mushroom, and you are listening to Dark Matters Episode 8, Deep Space Gotchas. Here's what I mean by gotchas. We are about to enter the realm of intermediate orbital transfer and insertion maneuvers, and I really just wanted the chance to clarify a few concepts from previous Dark Matters, make some corrections, and also respond formally to correspondence I've received over the last couple of episodes. Let's get started. In Episode 2, I talked about getting a fuel-efficient orbit around Kerbin using the Ferrum Aerospace Research mod. While I did due diligence in researching the mod, aggregating forum opinion on its use, and consulting with close friend and far enthusiast Monster07, that's the word 0, number 7, on Twitter, I must admit that I did not do the same personal in-game experimentation and maneuver proving that I've invested in all Dark Matters thereafter. While I've received no negative feedback on this episode, I wanted to apologize to any distraught Kerbalers that may have been affected. In Episode 3 and 4, I discussed design and use of RCS to enable docking vehicle translation. I cannot stress enough how important it is to place multi-direction RCS thrusters around the center of mass for that stage. You can waste a ton of monopropellant by having these thrusters even slightly misaligned, as your ship will constantly be correcting for slight rotations introduced by the uneven forces acting on it. Very similar to the problems John Glenn faced in orbit on the Mercury Atlas 7. Separate the stage you want to balance in the VAB, connect it to your prod or probe, and then balance appropriately. I also ran out of time in Episode 4 to discuss a few very common problems during rendezvous: intercepting vehicles in lower orbit, eccentric orbits, and crossing orbital paths. Let me address these in reverse. If your orbit crosses the orbit of your target, in my experience, you should do everything you can to get the target orbit wholly above or below your own. For eccentric orbits, you should perform burns near the apoapsis to align your periapsis of your target, then further maneuvers at your newly aligned periapsis to fully surround or be surrounded by your target orbit. Finally, when it comes to rendezvous with spaceflight behind you in lower orbit, you should make minor retrograde burns at your apoapsis and periapsis as you approach, skipping burns if the target craft is not approaching fast enough, and making more drastic burns if the target is approaching too quickly. That about does it for this correctional episode of Dark Matters. I would like to take a moment again to thank Biff and Nos for doing this podcast. Unlike my chances of mission success, it gets better with every orbit. I also want to send a little love to my co-conspirators on Twitter by the names of Mitten Poe, the O is a 0, Amy K, that's Little Blue 50, Christian at Antichrist77, and Ascalon at ENTDef. You guys are great, and I always look forward to your comments. I'll be back next episode with our first intermediate maneuver, the gravity assist. See you then.
All right. Once again, that's Dark Mushroom and this week's Dark Matters. And we move on now to Mission Briefing. That's the latest Kerbal news and also your letters. And Nos has our first letter.
Okay, first one is from Misha. Dear Nos and Biff and Nos.
What?
Yeah. There you go, Nos. You can be both first and last.
Boy, we're all just accommodating you this week.
I get to be there twice.
Uh-huh.
Okay, first topic from Misha is 0.25. I'm very interested to hear why you consider 0.25 career mode to be so much better than 0.24. As far as I can tell, the primary difference is the admin building with the strategies, which all they do is adjust the relative earnings of money, science, and reputation. I personally don't get why that makes contract mode much different, let alone hugely so. So for me, 0.24 was a far bigger update than 0.25. Nos mentioned 0.24 was the what and 0.25 the why. I'd really like to know what Nos considers to be the why. Okay, so there's still more to the letter.
Yeah, but we'll take these kind of point by point.
What I meant for the what and the why is I don't compare the updates as in, one is strictly better than the other. I'm really saying how much an improvement one is on top of the other.
Right.
Because, really, it's not like 0.24 and 0.25 are completely different games. 0.25 is an addition onto what 0.24 was. And, that, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
So what I meant by the what and the why is 0.24 says, this is what you will do in career mode. 0.25 says, this is why you'll do it.
Right.
So 0.24 says, you need to do contracts. Like this is for career mode, you will do contracts. You will earn money. That'll earn your reputation. But all it really seemed like is you were doing tasks to keep from being penalized. Like the only thing that they would net you is the ability to keep playing instead of rewards. With strategies, you gain the ability to choose what your rewards are. So instead of, what am I doing this for? To keep playing this game. It's like, why am I doing this? Oh, to earn the thing that I want, which will help me in this area. Mm-hmm. And, the differences are very small. I will say they added a lot more in 0.24 than they did in 0.25.
Right.
It's just that they added more, it meant more to the players. Well, they made all those things they added mean more.
Well, you encapsulated exactly my opinion, which was when 0.24 came out, they said, okay, here's what. And I was saying, yeah, but why?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Why am I getting this reputation? Or why do I?
What does this mean other than some arbitrary number?
Yeah.
Well, 0.25 now gives some meaning to it. I say that I'm not a career mode player. I am, I'm pretty much science, and when I want to experiment, sandbox. I'm not a career player, but I can recognize that in my mind, career got a lot better because now there's a why.
Yeah, and you can change things up too. So in the beginning, you could do a science strategy, and that strategy can net you a lot of science. And then near the end, whenever you want to do bigger missions, but you don't want to do a bunch of stuff just to earn money, you can change it for any science you get turns into money. Mm-hmm. So you now you don't have to do contracts that you don't want to do as often because you're earning money just from exploring. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, whenever it's like, hey, I need the parts to get to the Mun. Well, you need to do a lot of contracts which will earn you money that's converted into science. It's like, okay, now I have all those parts. Well, let's say you're now going out to Elu or something. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't want to be doing parts testing on parachutes. It's like you have most of the parts that you want unlocked. Mm-hmm. So now you make it to where it's science. So whenever you go to, Duna or anything and you collect science, it's converted into money, which means you don't have to do contracts as often for, subsequent plays. So you can use one to feed off of until the other to basically whatever you need at the moment, contracts can help you with. And eventually you can hit the point to where anytime you gain science, you gain the money to where you don't have to do contracts anymore. So it's kind of like your money makes money at that point.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that answers that question. What's the next one?
To be more compelling, I think there needs to be a storyline told through the missions. So instead of all missions being randomly generated, there should be a core set of missions which get triggered as you achieve the milestone of the previous story mission, each progressing the player on.
I think that is a great idea.
It happens to a small extent because, I mean, once you do the smaller things like achieve orbit and, transmit science and all those basic silver contracts.
Right.
Next comes explore the Mun and then plant a flag on the Mun and then explore Minmus. And they're very broad stroke.
Right.
But they could be something of the right direction of, one contract could be the biomes of the Mun and then, you could explore and get all those. And so it kind of leads you to all the next places you want to go.
Well, that was something that we had talked about before. For example, one of the contracts is rescue a I almost said a scrambled, a floating egg. Another egg joke.
Yeah.
Another egg joke.
No,
one of the missions is rescue a stranded Kerbal knot.
Yeah.
And I had said before, who is this guy? Why is he up there? What I would like to see, and again, this is something we've talked about, is let's say you're doing a mission and you run out of fuel. Well, at that point, generate a contract that says rescue your stranded Kerbal knot. And it's the Kerbal knot that you just stranded.
And I imagine from a squad's point of view, that sounds like a good idea, but
they're probably cursing me right now.
Well, no, there's just the chance that somebody finds out that it's like, okay, well, if I just, if I take a ship full of Kerbal knots, and then have them all go on the Mun and run to random areas, anytime I need quick cash, I can get contracts by picking them up.
You can only rescue one.
Yeah.
After that, their relative worth plummets.
Oh, okay.
It's only the first one. Everybody else that gets lost, you know what? It's your fault.
You're not near as important now.
It's Darwin in action.
He says, or alternatively, the player starts off with a very rudimentary space center and slowly upgrades it in order to build bigger rockets. Mm-hmm. So it's like you'd start off only being able to build rockets that are under 50 parts. And as you enhance, it's like spending money instead of to rebuild to add expansions to.
Yeah.
So you'd notice your VA building getting taller and taller, and you can build things that are thousands of parts. Anyway,
if your game could run it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure we'll see what career will be as Squad fleshes it all out a bit more in 0.26 beta, which sounds very promising. Okay, next up was parts testing.
What you just said is going to segue into what I've got, so Go ahead.
Okay, you both seem to be a bit unhappy about the parts testing contracts, comparing it to grinding, and I'm not sure why.
Have you seen on Twitter that there's a hashtag going?
Yeah.
No parts testing. I think it's hashtag no parts testing. Or
after all, the game doesn't force you to take a contract. Since the contract system is still quite rough, I'd say that this aspect of the game will be refined in the future to perhaps remove the sillier ones, like testing a parachute on the Mun or the SRB while splashdown. That's just kind of where we're at. The ones that don't make much sense are the ones that I don't take those. Mm-hmm. I only take the ones that I know I'll do or that I think are feasible on things I'm already doing. So whenever I see those contracts, it's just kind of annoying that they're all there, and the amount of money I would probably expend to do them does not, I don't earn any profit.
Right.
I'd be like, oh, hey, I broke even.
Well, I agree with what Dark Mushroom said last week. I disagreed in that, I thought 0.25 was a much better update to the game.
Yeah.
But I do agree that anything to me, and this is me speaking, anything that takes away from the core experience of building rockets and flying them and being up in space and exploring and landing and doing all those things, anything that takes away from that, to me, takes away from the game, which is why I'm primarily a science player. So, anyway.
Okay, and the last section is waffling, and I've gone on and on already despite promising to be concise. I guess it's just not in me. So while I'm waffling, what happened to As the Kerbin Turns?
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What segment is that?
Honey, I'm home.
Yeah. Some things come and some things go, and some things may be back again. That's about the best answer I can give. You know?
We kind of felt like that had run its course.
Yeah. And
when we first started doing As the Kerbin Turns, it was like every week, there were comments and letters, and man, that thing is hilarious. And then it got to the point where it was like we do it and nothing.
Yeah, and it was just becoming more of a struggle for us to find anything we really wanted to, do on. So, we may bring it back eventually, but for the moment, the structure we have is we're always playing with the structure of the show.
Right.
But the structure we have right now.
And plus, that poor guy's wife left him, so we figured...
And the way that we are...
When he gets a girlfriend, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, the way that we are...
A much younger girlfriend.
Things would have started getting real dark and depressing. So it's like let's just leave while it's on a good note.
Honey, I'm home. Honey. So another night with the liquor cabinet.
So just imagine that we're Fox and it's Firefly, and we just completely abused it, and now it's gone.
Don't get me started on Fox and Firefly.
Okay, and also now
you want to hear a rant to end all rants? Go ahead.
And he said, now that you've got after the credits, you've actually also switched to more space-related content. So I'm, for one, actually mostly staying on for after the credits.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we will not have this episode because one of the suggestions we had was if you guys don't have anything to talk about, don't do it. And guess what?
We don't.
We don't. So we actually went, because for a minute we were like, well, we could talk about, and then I went, you know what? Let's exercise that prerogative.
Yeah.
We have nothing to say.
Yeah.
So we're just not going to say the nothing that we have to say.
Finally, for anybody who is either in the UK or has access to a proxy there, they can enjoy the good new BBC documentary, Cosmonauts, How Russia Won the Space Race.
I would like to see that.
Anyway, before I use up all of the electrons in the internet, I'd better go. Looking forward to your next podcast, which luckily will be tomorrow. Yay me.
Yay.
Keep breathing, Misha.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, he mentioned what's coming up next for KSP, and that segues right into the forum post from Harvester, obviously creator of the game.
Yeah.
And the post was called Beta Than Ever, the Future of KSP. And it's fairly long, but I went ahead and kind of cherry-picked a couple of things. He says, quote, after the next release, Kerbal Space Program will reach an internal milestone we call Scope Complete. It means KSP now has all the features we considered vital to be in the game that we designed so many years ago. It doesn't mean the game has everything we want it to have. It means everything we considered necessary for it to be Kerbal Space Program exists, even if only a minimal form. That means that the development focus shifts towards completing those unfinished features, balancing and adding some smaller stuff. No more groundwork, no more laying down infrastructure, i.e. a new phase of development we're calling beta. To make it clear to everyone, we've decided not to call the next release version 0.26, which is kind of what we've been calling it.
Yeah.
Instead, once the update is out, we'll be officially in beta. So we're calling the next release version 090. Once in beta, there are two things we really want to add to the game. Overhauled aerodynamics to make it more realistic, reliable, predictable, and hopefully a lot less arcane. And deep space refueling. This is what we originally set out to achieve with the old resource mining plan and saw ourselves running into a very tedious dead end. We are now planning a new, more elegant system, which hopefully will add a new fun element of gameplay. That is just a short excerpt of the forum post from Harvester. Obviously, it's on the KSP website. Beta Than Ever. I strongly recommend you read it because there's lots of good stuff in there.
Okay, the next comes from FIT Orion, and I just want to tell you a story about a feature that almost was, which is actually funny. We just talked about it.
Yeah.
Many updates ago, there was a much-anticipated feature almost ready to come out in its initial phase. With teaser images were released, and then poof, it was gone. The feature was to be a robust resource gathering, scanning, and construction feature, kind of like the Kethane mod that you would be able to scan for resources and use special parts to mine and refine it.
That's what Harvester was just talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But there was going to be more
Wow.
to it than just that. Several resources would be available to mine and be refined into different things, not just fuel.
I guess I should point out at this point that we don't arrange these letters in any order.
Yeah,
we just kind of randomly...
Yeah, we just kind of throw them together. So sometimes they get answered before they're asked. So, It would allow the construction of off-world colony-type buildings. Imagine going to the Mun or Duna and not having to go all the way back to Kerbin, whenever you got science or anything like that. You could build such a system, truly colonize the world of the Kerbal system, be able to return science to the nearest science lab instead of all the way back, and refuel and fly at your various mining outposts, or carry the mining and refining parts with you, or have a VAB and build right there. It got canned.
But apparently it's coming back.
The initial stage of scanning for and obtaining the resources was apparently not fun. Actually, there was a flow chart that Max Maps put on the Something Awful forums, and somebody asked, like, hey, what happened? He's like, look at this. And he showed this flow chart, and he said, where's the fun? And it's like, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is just, yeah. So he goes on to say that there's things like destructible buildings, so does that mean there will eventually be constructible buildings?
That would be interesting.
Yeah, so maybe I can spark some brainstorming from you both about fun ways to achieve the ability to build on other worlds, both as in us and Squad.
All right.
So,
well, on the
just so you know, FIT Orion has not forgotten Squad.
He has not forgotten. He has a long memory. On KSP TV, they mentioned that they're working on in future versions, you'll be able to move the VAB around the Kerbal Space Center.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which I wonder if that when they say that, I wonder if that means you're still locked to the equator, or if you can literally put it anywhere.
Yeah.
Because if you put it way north, you're going to be burning a lot more fuel getting up there. All right. Well, let's continue on. Next letter. Greetings, Kerbalcast. Mittenpo from Norway here. It's getting quite chilly over here, but I believe we all are having some hot stuff going on in Kerbal Space Program. I finished watching the HBO series From the Earth to the Moon, and I loved every second of it. And I'm also glad that I watched it after playing Kerbal. Otherwise, I wouldn't have understood it at all. It does, playing Kerbal and then watching it.
Yeah.
A lot of the terminology they use and a lot of what they do makes so much more sense.
Oh, it's in a lot of stuff, like sci-fi stuff too. Like, it's funny watching Red Planet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was like one time they're like, RCS on, and I was like,
I know what that is.
I know what that means.
Yeah, well, and also you do things like you watch Star Wars, and you watch, fighters dogfighting and doing all these aerobatic maneuvering, and you're going, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to From the Earth to the Moon, Mittenpo says the best episode has to be the 5th and the last. Remember I said the 5th is building the limb.
Yeah.
So I got goosebumps when I heard, look what we just found. Remember Apollo 15?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been working on most of the Shea challenges, but the one from the last podcast, Build a Destructible Rover, has been quite a challenge. I need more time to figure out the most effective way to destroy the buildings. Biff asked in a recent episode if there was a way to land the limb on a flat surface without having to struggle. I might have a solution, or should I say, this is how I do it. Method number 1. Before decoupling and ascending to the surface, I deploy a tiny probe with just enough fuel to find and land on a safe landing site. This way, I can use it as a target and land my limb by just watching the nav ball. That's a good idea. I'd never even thought of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Method number 2, aim to land in the middle of a crater. Yep, it's harder than it sounds.
Uh-huh.
Method number 3, attach 4 Illuminator MK1s to the bottom of the lander. This way you can see if the lander is heading for a nice flat surface. If not, one of the lamps will get slightly oval eccentric compared to the other. Nos had some hard times with the struts where the end piece disappears under or behind the attached object. The easiest way of getting around this is not to delete the whole thing, but instead move the whole craft slightly towards you and zoom in on the attached object. When you get close enough, you'll see that your view will actually go inside the object.
Yeah.
AKA the wall hack. This way you can simply find the missing end piece and voila. That's it for now. Thanks a lot for the great show. And probably one of the most unique sign-offs. What would Kerbal do? We're going to burn in hell for that one.
Yeah.
Well, do you have the next one?
Yeah, this one's from Anthony B.
Okay. Anthony B. what?
B about to have a letter read.
Very good.
There we go. Okay, so first off is sci-fi movies. I now realize that I came across a little harsh in regards to science fiction. He was saying that,
Prometheus and irritated him to no end.
Please know that this is without a doubt my favorite genre, but I find that space movies are often lacking in the writing area. The things that annoyed me about Prometheus and Europa Report were the irrational characters. They're all supposed to be well qualified in their respective fields, but make decisions that break the immersion of the screenplay.
That's what you said about Red Planet. Remember? You said that was one of the things that you had a problem with, was these were supposed to be professionals, and a lot of them were acting like idiots.
Yeah.
And one of them was Val Kilmer.
Yeah. It was just like, I don't know, space janitors.
Space janitors.
Gravity annoyed me for different reasons.
Which was also canceled by Fox after they ran them all out of order.
Oh, yeah.
Space janitors.
Number one, it seemed
like... A little-known Joss Whedon show.
Gravity annoyed me for different reasons. Number one, it seemed like there was one act and that it was repeated 3 times. And number 2, Space Melancholy was a tad heavy-handed. I'd like to draw your attention to James Cameron's Aliens. For me, this is the science fiction benchmark that movies should try to exceed.
Boy, talk about setting the bar high.
Yeah. It has the right elements of character development and diversity, a strong main plot with just enough exposition, great action sequences and visuals that stand up 28 years later.
And if you have not seen it, I strongly recommend the director's cut.
Even when the characters are behaving irrationally, it's due to the obvious stress of the situation. Sorry, Biff.
No!
I've tried liking Blade Runner and 2001.
No, you take that back.
I almost didn't.
You take that back.
I almost didn't put it in the letter because I know how you'd react. But it seems that those films just haven't engaged my switches.
This is lunacy. This is heresy.
I saw Total Recall before either of those two. It was the first movie to blow my mind with a reality-bending ending. Yes, it's cheesy, but I was 11 in 1989 when I saw it in the cinema. And Planet of the Apes, on the other hand, it's so full of awesome.
Okay, that walked you back a little bit. 2001, I will brook no contrary opinion on that one. That is hands down it.
Okay, now on to Kerbal. So far I haven't spent much time in .25 and had a heck of a hard time trying to deliberately destroy the VAB. I think I've had at least 10 shots at it via ground and air. One thing I did accidentally when I tried was to fly the stock space shuttle. I'd flipped it over a number of times when releasing the launch clamps, so I figured more thrust will fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yeah.
Always
of course. It's like when your car's skidding on the ice. Just hit the accelerator.
It sure did. I pushed the Z key, but forgot to release the clamps. Economic boom. The launch pad was a smoldering rubble pile, yet the launch clamps were A-OK holding the shuttle in place. I still can't get the accursed thing to orbit. I might have to try an autopilot. Science mode is still my favorite mode to play, though I accidentally went broke after missing a Mun shot, jettisoning my landing legs, and doing an emergency landing on Minmus. I'd forgotten to pack chutes on the probe, so I had to be content with transmitting science. I had enough funds for one more try.
This is science mode? No.
Yeah, this is in career.
Oh, okay. I thought he said science mode. Oh, but science mode is his favorite, but he's in career.
Yeah.
Okay,
This
sorry.
time I remembered the
Little
chutes,
slow.
but botched the takeoff and didn't get to orbit. Rather than reverting, I tried to salvage it and land the fuel-laden craft. All was going well until the chutes fully deployed and with the probe core on an escape trajectory out of the Kerbal system. Whoops. This has to be my favorite game ever. I've called it complete since .23.5. My only disappointment was the lack of biomes, and that is about to be amended. Anyway, I feel that I've taken enough of your time. Until next time, Anthony B.
Never. You've never taken too much of our time, but you take that back about 2001.
Yeah, just take that little bit of time back, and I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, I won't go for that. Well, let's continue now. We have a letter now from North Star, and he says, Biff, your discussion of a future tech mod made me think of a question for you and your listeners. Have you ever heard of microwave beamed power as a potential launch system? An actual implementation of the idea would look like this. A large ground-based array of microwave transmitters, known as gyrotrons, would beam microwaves to a rocket as it lifted off from the launch pad and ascended through its flight. Lasers could also be used for this purpose, but high-powered microwave transmitters are much more cost-effective. The beamed power would be aimed at the drive section of the microwave beamed power rocket, where it would be used to heat up microwave-absorbent semiconductors. A flow of fuel would be passed over the hot semiconductors in a heat exchanger, and the heat transferred to the propellant would cause it to expand rather than a chemical reaction between two different chemicals, such as hydrogen and oxygen, earning the craft the name of being a thermal rocket. The expanding propellant would then be funneled out the end of the rocket and generate thrust, much like in a traditional chemical rocket. The advantages of this method of propulsion are, first, it would serve to leave the heaviest and most expensive equipment of the rocket on the ground, where it can be easily reused. Second, the specific impulse of a microwave thermal rocket would be much greater. And third, the propulsion system's thrust-weight ratio could nearly be twice as high. And the nicest thing about this technology, and the reason that I even bother mentioning it, is because there is nothing that is actually futuristic about it. You heard me right. There is nothing in this technology that hasn't already been developed, tested, or often applied for some other use as of the current day. NASA could deploy it in 8 to 10 years if they gave it the necessary manpower, funding, and effort. So microwave beam power. Very interesting. Thank you. Once again, that letter from North Star, and he says, regards. And regarding that, we're going to move right on now into Modder's Minute, brought to us this week by DK.
This week we've got a mod that seems simple, but is actually a huge help. All that NavHUD does is blow up the information on your nav ball and project it into three-dimensional space, so you can actually physically see where your vector indicators are. On the surface, what this adds is a higher resolution nav ball so you can get more precise with your maneuvers. Perhaps even a little too precise for some maneuvers if you're as meticulous as I am. But where the mod shines is in maneuvers that require a high degree of precision, particularly in landing spaceplanes and docking. With spaceplanes, you're able to see your velocity vector displayed right on the terrain, so you can see exactly where you're heading. This makes lining up for a landing a breeze. Also, I should note that it's really helpful for landing different parts of a base onto a different body. You can land them really precisely with this mod. For docking, the mod also comes with a target alignment indicator, and it makes it so much easier to point yourself in the exact orientation you want, and then fine-tune your approach with a higher degree of exactitude than you ever dreamed was possible. For experienced players who are looking to get just a little bit more precision from their maneuvers, this mod is definitely worth checking out.
All right, thank you again, DK, in this week's Modder's Minute. Don't forget, he has a new tutorial video up on YouTube, and we'll post a link when we post this podcast. Let's move on now to the Shea Challenge.
Okay, for the Shea Challenge, the scavenger hunt list has increased again. Here is my new list for my challenge.
You're going to go searching.
A secret orbiting a moon, rover camera on Duna, Kerbal Mountain secret, Lost Temple, the 2 other space centers, an Arctic secret, and a tribute to a small step.
It is amazing to me that he knows about this stuff.
All these things.
Yeah, if you find these things, please send us a screenshot. I would like to see this stuff.
And don't forget the snacks.
And don't forget the snacks. Well, that wraps it up for Kerbalcast, episode 23. The future is closer than you think.
Okay, we want to give a thanks to our listeners, and that includes our regular contributors, Shea Byram, DK, and Dark Mushroom.
And, of course, a big thank you to Squad for all your hard work, and the moderators for the subreddits, Kerbal Space Program, and Kerbal Academy.
All the music you've heard is by Professor Soap. You can find him at facebook.com/Professor Soap.
And you can contact us. It's kerbalpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Obviously, we will read your letter if you write to us. On Twitter, at Kerbalcast. Don't forget you can subscribe to us on iTunes, or
you can download episodes directly from kerbalpodcast.libsyn.com.
And that does it for today's edition of our program. I am your LMP, Lunar Module You know what? I'm going to make you first again. Our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
And I am bringing up the rear, LMP, Lunar Module Pilot, Biff Aldrin. Until next time, happy Kerbaling.